Be honest with Uncle Alberto. Identifying your business fail points and bottlenecks is a headache. So you pay high professional fees to gurus and consultants in a hope that they can solve your problem. They come up with the most harebrained ideas, and you know what? Sometimes they get it right. Let's bottom line this. You don't need a guru to guess your business problems. You need a strategy to diagnose them. Follow this video and I explain you step by step how to design and review your business processes. Welcome to my 10th digital marketing lesson. Today I will talk about service blueprint. We will see how to craft a service blueprint to design efficient business processes. Then we will see also how to improve business operational efficiency. First things first, do you have a service blueprint? I can bet that the majority of businesses out there don't have one. And that's why they are not able to sort their stuff out. Let me explain. Whether you're starting a brand new business or you want to audit its performance, you must know what happens in your organization from the first moment a prospect enters in contact with you till the end of their journey. Marketing and management of Kotler and Keller said that the duty of a business is to skillfully help customers move from one step to the next. If I ask you to describe me the processes of your company, I can bet that you can be the best teacher ever. But have you ever put them in writing? Have you ever drawn your process flows? A strategy can't be made upon words and thoughts. You need concrete maps, schemes, and plans. So what is a service blueprint? A service blueprint, or sometimes also called marketing blueprint, maps out a business processes, highlights the contact points with customers, and enables managers to interpret the flows from a customer perspective. The best way to understand this tool is through an example. This image is my reworked version of a rehashed blueprint designed by the Indian UX designer Srishti Rao. Rehash was a project aimed at collecting and reusing household waste as fertilizer to reduce costs in agriculture. Rehash collects waste from families in exchange for organic food discount coupons. It transformed the waste in manure and sold it to farmers for a fair price. Then, families were able to use their coupons to purchase organic food from farmers at a convenient price. Instead, this is another example that I have extracted from services marketing, integrating customer focus across the firm, and it depicts a simplified blueprint for overnight hotel stay. A business flowchart describes mainly 5 variables: how processes flow, time for each process to service provision, cost for each step, company's efficiency during a service provision, and finally, the potential bottlenecks. Service blueprint was first mentioned in 1984 by a bank executive, Lynn Shostak. In his work Designing Services That Deliver, published by Harvard Business Review, he explained how this tool allows organizations to diagnose issues with operational efficiency. So how can you actually craft a service blueprint? A business process chart is always built from a customer point of view and consists of inputs, processes, and outputs. There isn't a bad or a good way to build it because it depends on the intended application. Let's start defining the dimension used in the rehashed blueprint. The first element that I want to mention is the timeline. A business flowchart represents all steps in the buyer journey. That's why it's useful to add a variable of time. A horizontal orientation suits better for this purpose, and according to the specific need, you can eventually add the time necessary to fulfill each process. The second dimension is physical evidence. All the tangible elements related to each step of the buyer journey that can influence customers' perception. They can be flyers, mails, delivery vans, uniforms, notifications, websites, and so on. Customer actions represent the steps that a customer takes during a service delivery. Then you can add a line of interaction. You should divide the customer's actions from service provider ones. In this way, you can attribute responsibilities and understand who has to make the first move to start the next step. Front of stage interactions, or just front stage interactions, are visible interactions between customers and employees, that they are called visible contact employees. In other words, actions undertaken by a service provider which are visible to customers. They can be face-to-face encounters or online interactions like social media comments, email, text conversations, and so on. They are very important because they represent the direct contact points between a business and its customers. You should also separate front stage and backstage activities with a line of visibility. What you put below this line is not visible to a customer. Back of stage interactions, or just backstage interactions, are actions undertaken by a service provider which are not visible to customers. Employees still have contact with customers, but it's not direct, and they are called invisible contact employees. Despite the classic literature or Wikipedia, I prefer using the words direct and indirect contact to help online businesses define their front and backstage activities. In a digital business, back of stage interactions can be a website page, a blog, or social media post. An employee is still communicating to customers, but the latter can't directly interact with the employee. For example, I consider a Facebook post a backstage interaction. Instead, a comment to that post is a front stage interaction. An employee identifies themselves with a name and profile image and starts a direct conversation with customers who can reply with another comment. To better explain myself, we need to take a step back and understand why this dimension is so important. Every front and backstage activity is associated with one or more employees, so the organization must know what skill set takes to cover the position. Employees who fulfill operations in these two dimensions must have both skill set and training for being in contact with clients. According to James Heskett, Earl Sasser, and Joe Wheeler in Ownership Quotient, putting the service profit chain to work for unbeatable competitive advantage, published in 2008 by Harvard Business School Press, successful businesses encourage positive employee attitudes to generate stronger customer loyalty. The line of internal interaction divides the activities that require contact with customers from the ones that are carried out within the company. Finally, support processes are activities required to service delivery that don't need any contact with customers. These are the main dimensions that you can use in a service blueprint, but you can add as many as necessary. For example, other models require an inventory which represents the resources needed for each step. You can also add a line of implementation which divides management to support activities. The difference is that management is responsible for controlling and planning, while support includes preparation. What are the steps to take to build a service flowchart? Let's see step by step what you should do. The first thing that you have to do is identifying the key activities to service delivery. Then you have to decide what the customer's experience will be. It means that you have to set a line of visibility and aggregate front and backstage activities. Then you should insert timeframes by adding the average or maximum tolerable time taken to fulfill each step. Then you have to identify the responsible personnel. And finally, you can note all the fail points, excessive waits, and bottlenecks. Since a business complexity can vary, I can understand that mapping all the processes with pen and paper can be challenging. The first is Castellans, a collaborative tool focused on mapping the buyer journey with a foolproof interface and compelling visual design. Castellans has a free version but gives access just to one user and allows you to generate only 60 cards. In this tool, when you create a service blueprint, you should have as many cards as many steps are included in your buyer journey. The second tool is Miro, a collaborative whiteboarding platform. Despite Castellans, Miro is not focused on customer journey maps, and its scope is much broader. It provides solutions for product development, lean and agile, UX research and design, innovation and ideation, strategy and projects, and mind mapping. You can create a service blueprint by adapting its mapping features to your purpose. Also, Miro offers a free plan, and it gives access to an unlimited number of members, but you can only edit free boards. In Miro, a board is an online whiteboard which you can use to visualize ideas, work on projects either individually or with a team. In the description below you can find the links to these two tools. While you craft your service blueprint, keep in mind that maybe also other stakeholders have to understand it. If you are a designer let loose, this is your field of expertise. But if you want to make sure people understand your flowchart, you should use the symbols that I have listed in my related blog article, and I have linked it in the description below. Now let's clarify why a service blueprint is so important and how it can benefit organizations. The two main benefits in making a service blueprint are identifying the contact points between service provider and customers, and identify the fail points, issues or bottlenecks that can emerge during a service delivery. There are two keys to reading. The first is the customer perspective. They usually evaluate the quality of a service by considering all contact and fail points. Instead, the company point of view starts from fail points, number of clients served in a range of time, and cost to serve them. Companies usually incur in fail points when customers perceive a risk. For example, they don't feel in control of the situation, or they need more feedback or information from the contact employees. A second reason can be the company which doesn't satisfy customers' requests, or because customers wait more than expected. And here you have the so-called bottlenecks that I will deepen later. A company should use a service blueprint to create the best flow of operations or redesign them. And in both cases you can achieve many objectives. You will be able to improve productivity, improve customer satisfaction, decrease fail points, decrease the time to service delivery, in different words, decreasing costs. You will be able also to decrease bureaucracy or introduce new or additional services. Without a blueprint, it's difficult to figure out the best spot to insert them. You could also adapt the process to new law or regulations, or renew the process to service delivery when it is perceived obsolete by customers. Before I mention bottlenecks, what are the most common ones and how can you fix them? First of all, you should understand that a bottleneck occurs every time that demand overwhelm production capacity. And there are mainly two types of bottlenecks. There are the short-term bottlenecks, which are temporary technology malfunctions, for example from equipment, software or IT systems, or they can be caused by employees' backlogs. For example, when someone is sick, doesn't work, and the company can't take over them with other employees. The second type is represented by long-term bottlenecks, which are recurring delays or waits. For example, every month someone is behind on their tasks. Short-term bottlenecks are common in most businesses, and even if you take every possible countermeasure, you still have a small risk percentage of system failure. The important thing is to identify them as soon as possible and take action to fix them. You should have a manager responsible for each business unit or department who keeps monitoring unexpected issues. Because of their temporary nature, short-term bottlenecks are easy to identify because they break up a certain routine. But what if that routine has been inefficient for a long time? The answer is that you get used to it, and the corrupted routine becomes the normal routine. Let's say that you enter a room with a bad smell. If you stay in contact with it for a long time, you don't perceive it anymore. And this is called sensory adaptation. The Oxford zoologist Louis Villazon wrote, "Our nervous system has evolved to become progressively less sensitive to a stimulus the longer it persists." This enables us to concentrate on the newest sensations that are more likely to be an opportunity or a threat. In the same way, we adapt to new routines after a certain time, even if they are wrong. That's why you should correct operational inefficiencies as soon as possible. This brings us to long-term bottlenecks, the most dangerous ones, because they become part of a business routine. Here is a step-by-step guide to find and fix bottlenecks. The first step is performing a bottleneck analysis by crafting a service blueprint, as I have already explained before. Then you have to identify what causes a bottleneck. Is it because of people, and they are called performers, or technology, the so-called systems? A first solution can be increasing the efficiency of the step. For example, you can eliminate redundant or excessive steps. Usually the more simple of processes, the better. You can upgrade the related software to better fulfill the task, or list all the processes that can be automated and replace people with technology. It is ethically bad, but it works. You can eventually compare your workflow with competitors and copycat them. Besides, you can interview employees and understand the difficulties that they are facing. A second solution is decreasing input to the bottlenecked step. For instance, you can drop production, but it should never be a long-term solution since it causes a reduction of profits. You can add more staff to the process, but it is also a risky solution since additional personnel raises costs and requires higher coordination efforts. In other words, it decreases profits too. To solve bottlenecks, I usually focus on flows and tasks first. In my professional experience, the majority of delays are caused by the incapacity of managers and entrepreneurs to prioritize urgent and important tasks. When management understands the difference between the two, workflows start working smoothly again. Another handy tool that I suggest you to use is teamwork, the best project and team management tool worldwide. And I talk after testing Monday.com, Trello, and many others. Among the many features of teamwork, you can use its powerful reports to analyze employees' workloads and performance. In this way, you will always be a step forward in preventing performers' bottlenecks. Another hot point of this video is how you can improve operational efficiency. Because we have already said that a service blueprint is needed to diagnose operational inefficiencies, but it doesn't fix it per se. So let's see how you can strategically use it. According to Marketing and Management of Kotler and Keller, you should use a service blueprint to standardize performance throughout the organization. Variable procedures always lead to major risks and unexpected fail points. I'm not only referring to complex processes, but also to small back-office tasks like reordering files in a standard way. In 2003, Business Harvard Review issued The Lean Service Machine by Cynthia Swank, who explained how difficult it is for substitutes find stored files in organizations where employees are free to choose their own storing system. She quoted an insurance company where some employees ordered files by policyholder, alphabetical, others by policy number, chronological, and others by date received. A viable solution is adopting a production lining approach. You should simplify tasks. You can design them from scratch or divide a bigger task into easier and smaller subtasks. To avoid human error, you should prefer automations and technology rather than people. Your employees should have a clear and specific assignments without much latitude. In this way, they learn how to fulfill the task faster and better. Wherever technology can't substitute people, you should write policies and best practices. In other words, you should introduce standard operating procedures. They can be instructions to perform a technical task, dress code policy, social media policy, and other best practices for operating processes. A standardized service delivery allows companies to output the quality on a consistent basis, and managers are able to easily audit processes. It improves productivity and decreases costs. Most fast food outlets embrace this approach, and their blueprints are designed to support volume operations. Despite all the advantages, managers should consider the trade-off between operational efficiency and tailored service delivery for a better customer experience. You should also use a service blueprint to deal with critical failures. Fail points are always around the corner, and employees must be trained to execute the plan B when things go south. For example, according to their rules, employees should be trained to deal with objections. Let's say that you are a social media manager and a user starts posting compliance in your company's page. What would you do? In this case, the best solution is moving the conversation to a private channel, for example, email. You have to reassure the user that their compliance will be taken care of and redirect them to the person responsible for the related issue. In 2004, Journal of Business Research issued Blueprint the Service Company, Managing Service Processes Efficiently, where it is explained how less contact points lead to a greater efficiency. Every contact point between a company and its customers generates a risk of failure. For example, an employee can be very tired and gives a bad answer to a client. Human error is always the most risky factor. A solution could be empowering customers with self-service or self-guided processes which involve technology rather than people. Nevertheless, a drawback of this strategy is the lack of flexibility and differentiation. You can use a service blueprint to introduce do-it-yourself services by increasing the degree of participation of your customers in terms of effort and involvement. And this approach aims at lowering cost of service delivery. For example, you can implement a co-creative process which involves customers in the creation of a product or service. It is also called the joint production. Another example can be represented by banks. Banks management should prefer customers to use online banking instead than over-the-counter service, since the latter is more expensive in a bank perspective. You can use a business process chart to separate complexity. In other words, you should aggregate tasks with similar level of difficulty in clusters with own procedures and performance. A bank should divide the retail customer with easy-to-process transactions from commercial customers who make large operations. In this way, the line will be remarkably reduced and the customer perspective will positively increase. So you should place linked processes close to each other, and not only to increase operational efficiency, because it also widens employees' perspective. It enables them to focus on the overall customer journey and see the impact of their actions to the whole system. Another strategy to exploit a service blueprint is to remove loopbacks. Manufacturers shouldn't return works to previous steps for further processing. A loopback generates confusion among employees and increases the complexity of the system. For example, the staff can have troubles to prioritize and schedule tasks. So it requires management to intervene and clarify roles and work pipeline. The last strategy is to dominate fail points. A service provider can blame both itself and customers for critical failures in its service delivery. When a service provider fails, a business flowchart can help understand what's going on and management can take actions accordingly. An employee might miss following a script and doesn't serve a customer properly. That's why diagnosing and analyzing fail points is fundamental to improve operational efficiency. In a different scenario, Customers may not understand how to proceed in their journey or omit fundamental actions in the process. For example, they can fail in presenting the necessary documents for a medical visit. Customers' failures usually happen for two reasons: a lack of information or a lack of company's resources. Organizations should provide a checklist of what is required from the customer and guide them during the whole process. If a company lacks resources, it must adopt short-term strategies to make a quick fix at the problem while acquiring new resources and assets. Now that you have all the necessary knowledge to audit your business processes, what's your first reason to craft a service blueprint? Is it to discover bottlenecks or improve customer satisfaction, increase productivity, or discover fail points? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you for watching this video. Every week I come up with a digital marketing lesson, so make sure to subscribe to this channel, like this video, and see you soon.